John, somebody I wanted to talk about on this show today is Jordan Davis. We brought him up a little bit earlier in the show, but I was thinking about that 50-year option that's looming out there. And I don't know what you would project if they were to get a contract done with him, but some of the numbers that were originally mentioned, and I don't know if they would be anywhere close, to be honest, in the actual deal, but some of the numbers that were mentioned prior or earlier this offseason this year really look generous now when you consider how the league is exploding in terms of what they're paying defensive linemen. So, does that change whether you would extend Jordan Davis? I mean, where are you overall right now on Jordan Davis? Is he a guy you would extend regardless of the number?
It's that one's a tough decision. Would really
Yeah.
have to do with the deal with the contract, as you mentioned. He doesn't play a lot. That's the reality. So, to me, I think he's a very valuable player. I think he's hard to replicate. I've talked about this from day one when they drafted him. I wasn't sure about the draft, not because I didn't like the player. I love the player. It was just I thought it was a very esoteric pick. And when you pick somebody at 13 and you trade up to get him, by the way, targeted trade up, they were 15. Ironically, um, Kenyon Green ended up going 15, and now he's here. But from the standpoint of, we always talk about sacks. We just talked about it with Brandon Graham. It's not a high level sack player. And he almost can't prove himself and his impact if the Eagles defense is good, if that makes sense, like they were last season. Because the Eagles were so good last season, they didn't have to roll out multiple their variable front, their
Right.
5-man front.
After week 4, they barely used that at all.
Exactly. So, Moro Jomo ended up playing more than Jordan Davis because he's going to play more in obvious passing situations. And I'm including the postseason with that. And I think the numbers were 490 to 444 or something like that. So it was close, but Moro actually played more. But if the Eagles can't stop the run with those 4-man fronts, they play the 5-man fronts. And they generally play it on first down. Not always, but, base to try to get you in second and long. There's sometimes they're so confident that you're not going to be able to run on them that last year that they wouldn't even start with the 5-man front as the season wore on. So it's almost like they have to be worse for him to prove his worth. But I think the Eagles know the worth. And then the question comes into the contract and, well, how much can you pay a 2-down player? Because he's a 2-down player. And for all these people who want him to develop as a pass rusher, and that you certainly want him to develop, and I think he has. You saw some of the postseason. He's gotten a little bit better, but he's always going to be an interior push guy. He's not going to be anything else, which is fine. But again, how much can you pay that player? Because there is no world where when it's 3rd and 13, you want Jordan Davis on the field. Not in the modern NFL. You want Carter. You want a Jomo. You want Nolan Smith. And the theory, what they have now, probably Azeez Ojulari. And that may change whether Jalix Hunt develops or they draft an edge rusher. That may change inside if they find somebody better than Morrow. But you want those guys who can run. And a lot of teams now only use on those obvious passing situations, they use 4 edge rushers. And they, try to make guys versatile inside. So you'll have sort of stand up, mugging the A gaps. and 4 pass rushers on the field, NASCAR package. You know, so if he's the 32nd pick like they have now, I think you say that's a really good player. He's picked 13th. We know how this works. Where are the sacks? Where are the sacks? Where are the sacks? You ain't getting sacks.
Well, what can Jordan Davis develop into, in your opinion, with Clint Hurd and Vic and some of these guys? And, you know, is this his ceiling? Can he just
I think he's
become
hit his
great at
ceiling,
what he
and
does? Or
he's pretty good. I think.
is there ever a world that would exist, John, where you would want him on the field in 3rd and 13?
No.
Never. No, you don't think he could develop into that player?
No.
Well, I don't either. I was just asking you.
Why would you? Why? I don't even understand people who want that. It's like,
well, I think because people want to justify giving him the contract. And in order to do that, you've got to play more than 20, 25% of the snaps.
well, then he shouldn't have drafted him. You know, you don't draft Vita Vea to find a pass rusher. You don't draft Haloti Ngata to have him on the field on 3rd and 13. You draft them to get to 3rd and 13 because they stifle the run. You don't draft them to rush the passer.
So what's that role worth then? I mean, you know, and that's fine. I'm fine with that answer. But what's that role worth if Jordan is going to be what he's going to be? Because I'm a Slager. I mean, I think Slager brings up a good point here. Who cares where he was drafted? That's over. I mean, we've already, you know, we're 3 years beyond that now.
Everybody but Slager.
But, well, I think moving on for the next contract, you know, who does care? You know, I don't care. I get it. You can analyze his first 4 years and say, well, you should have drafted him later. But moving forward for the next contract, what's the value then of a player like that? You know?
Well, that's the trick. It's not the value of Chris Jones. It's not the value of 3 down players, 4 down players. Sometimes if you're playing Detroit and Philadelphia, now it's got to be a 4 down player. You know, it's not that. It's not Jalen Carter's value. I don't know why it went outside the organization when Jalen Carter's right next to him. Jalen Carter's going to reset the defensive tackle market.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly, unless something drastic happens, he's going to reset the defensive tackle market. He's not getting paid like like Jalen Carter. So, you know, then it becomes the wrangling back and forth where everything comes into it. I'm sorry, Slager, but, you know, when people want to bring it up, they bring it up. Oh, Derek Barnett is a first-round pick. He's not valuable, blah, blah, blah. You know, same thing. It's the 13th overall pick in the draft. Plays at a high level. That's what his agent's going to say. Everybody had good grades on the Eagles last year, but Jordan Davis was 20th in the NFL at interior defensive lineman. They don't split him up, so he's even better as a 3-down player. You know, as far as being a run stuffer, he's tremendous, but he's not a 3-down player, so that complicates things. How high do you want to go? That's the whole trick.
Well, let's just look because, you know, Dexter Lawrence is probably the best nose in the NFL, right? 22-5.
Yeah, but he's way better as a pass rusher.
Yeah, he can do both. He gets a lot of sacks, Dexter Lawrence. All right, so let's go to somebody else. Vita Vea makes $17.7 a year in Tampa. 17.7.
Yeah, I think he'd be the template. That's what I'd use.
But again, that high though. Are you going to pay Jordan Davis 17 for what he's giving you right now?
Well, I would come back and say he doesn't play as much as Vita if I'm the Eagles.
That was my next question.
Now I could tell you what the lobby back would be there. Well, Tampa doesn't have as good a player, so he has to play more.
Right.
So all of it, that's why it's a difficult negotiation. But that's what if I were Jordan's agent, I would start with that contract and say, I got to get a little bit more than Vita Vea because that's how it works. Next guy up gets more. still younger, still upside, still more upside. And then if I'm the Eagles, I say, yeah, but he hasn't played as much. And then you go wrangle back and forth and say, yeah, but your defensive line is better than their defensive line. And if he were there, you'd be playing more, yada, yada, yada. So yeah, it's a difficult negotiation. And the fifth-year option part of it, the Eagles don't like doing that, number one. Now they'll pick it up as a placeholder. But for the people, if they want to pick it up, they'll pick it up as a placeholder while trying to work out a longer term deal. For salary cap purposes, it just makes sense.
Right.
But two, what I said about Tony Dungy the other day is that you don't want to hold people hostage if they don't want to be here. You want productive employees. And it's easy to say, well, just play under, and you can get away with it, but it's just not the typical way the Eagles like to do business because you want productive employees. It's a difficult one.
It is. It's really difficult because if you look at it, I mean, you just said, and I agree with you, they're probably going to come in and they're going to, how the market goes. I mean, let's be real, guys. Milton Williams is the third highest paid defensive tackle in the NFL. He is not the third best defensive tackle in the NFL.
No, he's not.
Not even close. But
he's a pass rusher too.
But there are people who will probably say, you can't pay him more than Vita Vea. He's not as good as Vita Vea. That's how contracts work. So, John, my question to you would be, Vita Vea makes $17.75 a year. Let's say Jordan does want to beat that. $18 million a year, 3 years is $54 million. Let's give him 2 of the years guaranteed with $36 million. If you're the Eagles, would you do that deal?
I would do it because I think it's a very, very difficult player to replace. I said it before he got here. They need it. They didn't have it. They can't find it. They've tried to find back. It's a very difficult player to replace. When Jonathan Gannon got here in 2021, is it 2021? I get my years mixed up. Yeah, 2021. Yep. People didn't even know, and some people did. I knew because I talked to them, but a lot of people didn't even know what scheme he was running when he was trying to duplicate Vic's scheme because he didn't have the big nose tackle to play the variable fronts that he wanted to play. And that's one of the main reasons they drafted Jordan Davis the next year to get that player in. And you remember when Jordan got hurt, Jordan was playing very well as a rookie. He got hurt. And then they brought in Linval Joseph middle of the season because they needed that type. They needed that player to run that scheme.
Right.
Vic needs that player to run his scheme. Where are you going to get that player?
Yeah,
at that level.
And that will be what Jordan Davis uses. But boy, $18 million a year just sounds too much.
And by the way, that's low. Just remember, his cap's going up again next year.
See, I was thinking more in the ballpark of 10 to 12 million. And with Jordan Davis, you get the deal done. But if you're going 18 plus million, that's heavy, man, for a guy playing 20% of the snaps.
Well, he's got to play more. I mean, that's part of it, no doubt about it. But again, it's almost like, do you really want to wish for him to play more if you're going to pay him that much money? Because you're wishing for it to be less effective defensively. It's a weird, that's why I said esoteric. You're rooting to be less effective. Oh, we're shitter against the run, so we need Davis on the field more. That's what you're rooting for.
Right, if you want him to play more. So can't the Eagles take the approach then, if that's true, that if we build up every other area of the defense and we can live without the nose tackle effectively?
Well, realistically, that's not going to happen over a multi-year span. So that's where the Eagles got to be. I often say the most difficult thing for NFL teams to do is be honest with themselves and to sit there and go, well, we'll just do what we did this year. It's probably not going to work long term. At some point, you're going to have some issues stopping the run. And now more so because now teams, I talked about for years with Jody, and even before when I would do radio spots and do radio stuff all over. I was waiting for the team, and I always thought it would be Belichick in New England. I was waiting for the team. Everybody just keeps putting small defenders on the field, 230-pound linebackers.
Right.
2 linebackers, taking a linebacker off the field. Big talks about it all the time. The fullback and the linebacker, the third linebacker, don't exist anymore. That's the biggest change from when he started to now. And I always said, who's gonna look at all these? Think about even up front, Nolan Smith-sized players out in the NFL, and say, all right, I'm just going to line up a bunch of big, strong guys and run the football down their throat. And it turned out it was the Eagles and to a certain degree, Baltimore last year. Now everybody's going to look at that. That's what this league does. It's a copycat league, slow-moving copycat league. So everybody's going to be watching film of the Eagles and what they did to them, and they're going to adjust. Both on both sides of the football, not only defensively but offensively, and say, well, if they do it, why can't we do it? Better get some offensive linemen and a running back, but I digress. So things move. They're fluid. They don't stay the same. They're not static. And you're going to need this player or somebody who can duplicate what this player provides. But you're going to have to pay a lot of money if you want to keep him. And right now, he doesn't play enough to justify that. So it is very, very difficult, I would say, negotiation.
Okay, we're looking at $18 million for Jordan Davis. We're looking at $40 million for Jalen Carter.
I think 18 might be
million
little.
For Quinyon. You're looking at $25 million for Cooper DeJean. You got $15 million for Zach Ball. I mean, it ain't all going to work. Something's got to give on that defense. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what they end up doing with Jordan Davis. But how about the immediacy, John? Do you think they'll pick up the fifth-year option? That's not something they typically do, but
I mean, if they do, it'll be as a placeholder. In other words, they'll pick it up this, whatever it is, May 1st or May 2nd.
Yeah, right.
I forget the date. They'll pick it up as a placeholder. They will not let him play the 5th year under that number for cap purposes.
Right.
Remember, this is his 4th year, so you have a whole year to work it out. You have a whole year,
yep. And then next year would be the 5th-year option year. What is the 5th-year option price?
I think it's 12 or something, somewhere in that range. But they don't want that big lump on the cap. They'll work out a longer term deal.
Yeah, that's why they don't do that, because you can't manipulate the cap hits on those options, those 5th-year options.
But he's more difficult. Obviously, what usually happens is 3rd year pops up. You're going to see this with Jalen Carter. They extend them, and you're never worried about the 5th-year option. They'll roll it in the 5th-year option.
Kind of like Devontae Smith is what.
That's what they normally do. It's a little bit more difficult with Jordan because it's not a slam dunk, because he doesn't play that much. That's a legitimate concern, but and that's why I use the term esoteric, because I said it from day one. I'm not sure this is going to work, because I'm not sure people are going to understand the value of the player. And here we are. And I think a lot of people don't understand the value of the player.
See, if you told me, give him a 3-year deal, it's $12 million a year, which is around what the 5th-year option is, done.
Well, that's easy. That ain't realistic, though.
$18 million is heavy for Jordan Davis, but we will see. Let's get to a couple super chats, then we'll get to our first commercial break. Coming up in hour number 2, we have Brandon Lee Gatlin, BLJ. Normally we have Mike Gill on Wednesdays, but we had him on Monday. You guys know that, obviously. He's down in Clearwater for the Phillies spring training. So We won't talk to Mike this week, but we do have BLG coming up in hour number 2. JD3 checks in. He says, shout out to J-Mac for burying me for 15 minutes about Harrison Bryant, but spending 15 minutes last episode saying my exact same takes. I forgive you, J-Mac.
Yeah, I think JD, you're gravely overstating that. You were projecting him as a starting. I'm talking about Temu off-season players.
Well, I think what you said about the floor is what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, as I recall, and I don't even recall, to be honest, but there was one, and it might not even have been JD3. It was one talking about Harrison Bryant, like, oh, he can be a starting level tight end. And I was ripping that person. So if that was you, JD, yes.
I don't think that was him. I do remember when we had some fun with him on the show for sure.
Yeah. So, as far as floor of the players, yeah, I'm not terribly high on any of the Temu offseason signing.
No, you're not.
Of the two that I think are the most safest bets to be on the team are Dory Jackson and Harrison Bryant. That doesn't mean I think they're meaningful, impactful players. But yeah, so I don't know who that was, but the one that was making it out like he could be the replacement for Dallas Goedert, that's the guy I'm ripping.
Yeah, no, he
ain't Dallas Goedert.
No, he's not. Brian Pumper checks in. What's up, Pump? All the data I've collected. Jordan Davis plays 12 snaps a game. Sounds like he's only valuable for off-field factors. Give him a quality control job. Come on, Pumper.
Yeah. The data Pumper collected. All right, Pumper. Yeah. Well, I just spent 15 minutes talking about Jordan Davis, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'll lean on that. But yeah, I think you should collect more data, Pumper. That's what I would say to that.
What's data collection if you're not collecting the right data or doing it effectively?
Oh yeah, well that's the key to. It's not the data. It's the correct evaluation of the data.
Come on, Pump. How you collecting data? He says again, Jordan Davis is the size of a Mack truck, but with the mentality of Hello Kitty. Good day, sir.
Yeah, well, all right. Pretty good against the run.
Brian Pumper is a funny guy. You got to give him that. JD3 checks in. He can give someone else 12 dominant rundowns for $18 million.
That's what they're not getting. They only listen to one part of it. You ain't going to be this good against the run with 4-man fronts in perpetuity. I guarantee that. I can't guarantee a lot of things, but I can guarantee that it ain't going to be that way in perpetuity. And when you're struggling against the run and you're trying to play
go ask any defense that played the Eagles this year. What happens when you struggle against the run?
Yeah. And you're trying to play Javon Hargrave at nose tackle. Enjoy that. That's what happened.
So from that response, I would be led to believe that Johnny Mack is in on Jordan Davis at $18 million a year.
Yeah, it ain't my money. What do I get? Yeah, he's a good player. He's a very hard player to duplicate. I mean, again, go back to the majority of these fans didn't even know the scheme they were playing because they couldn't play it effectively because they didn't have a nose tackle. Couldn't find a nose tackle. Had to play Joe. Did everyone enjoy Javon Hargrave as a run defender? Hell of a pass rusher.
He stunk against the run.
Playing nose tackle. Think about Moro Ajomo playing nose tackle. Wouldn't work. Right now, your second best nose tackle is probably Thomas Booker. I love Thomas. Maybe the smartest guy on the Eagles. Stamper guy. Call him Senator Booker. I don't want him playing nose tackle.
Yeah, the other thing is, I think Twiz brings up a good point here. I don't think people comprehend it takes DTs a few years to develop. 100%. I mean, Jalen Carter might have warped our mind because he's already like the best defensive tackle in the NFL.
Well, I don't think people comprehend they play different positions. There's nose tackle. There's
Right.
shade technique. There's one. There's
Yeah, but
three.
DTs
There's five.
in general, I mean, the whole
There's
thing
4
in
eye.
general takes is harder to look. I want him to play some 3 technique. If he can't play any 3 technique at all, it's going to be hard to justify.
Why would you want him to play 3 technique when you have Jordan
because he's
Davis?
got to get on the field some
when
more.
you have Jalen Carter and Morojo. But if you have better 3 techniques, here's what I don't understand. If you have better 3 techniques, why don't you let them play 3 technique and let the guy who's better at shade or nose play that?
Well, he's definitely better at that. But if we talk about getting him on the field more, then what does that look like? Like you said, it means your defense is lesser. It's not as good if you want him on the field.
Yeah, but you need the player. You need the player because you can't. That's where you have to be honest with yourself. You can't expect in perpetuity you're going to be able to stop the run with a bunch of 3 techniques out there who in theory, on paper, shouldn't be able to stop the run. Nobody says Jalen Carter should play more nose to prove his worth. It's a different fucking position. Yeah, and by the way, if you did, you got problems. And by the way, he could play nose. When I said he's probably their second best nose tackle. Never plays it because why would you play it? But he's so good, he could probably, persevere. But you don't want him doing it. Why would you? I don't get people sometimes. Oh, he's got to play more 3 technique. I got 3 techniques. I need a nose tackle.
I'm trying to think of a world where you pay him money, he can give you the value he gives you that we've extensively talked about today, and he can get on the field a little bit more. I'm not saying 3rd and 13, but I don't know, 3rd and 6. Can he get out there? I mean, we need a little bit more.
He can play on 3rd and 6, sure. But again, the Eagles were so good last year. At some point, I get everybody wants to pump their chest out and they're going to be good at that and Vic and this and that. It's not always going to be that good. And you're going to need a nose. You don't have to go back far. Look at the difference between 2021 and 2022. You don't have to go back very far. And the impactful difference, and it wasn't just Jordan, it was Linval as well after Jordan got hurt. They need that player to play this scheme. And by the way, you can change schemes, but as long as Vic's here, you're going to play what Vic wants.
I mean, if that's where we're at, then it's, for me, it's an easy decision. I mean, you might not like the money, but you got to figure out how to make the rest of the defense work and pay everybody. But
and that's part of it as well. I mean, it's not like the Eagles want to get rid of Dallas Goedert,
Well, that's what I mean. Something's got to give, though. So if you're gonna say Jordan is this valuable to the defense, which I'm not arguing, so we're gonna give him the $18 million. Well, is that more valuable than, I don't know, you got other contracts coming up?
No, it's not more valuable. It's not more valuable than Jalen Carter, obviously.
Well, yeah,
it's not more valuable than Quinyon Mitchell playing outside. Cooper's a difficult projection too, depending on where he ends up and where he plays, but it's not more valuable, especially if he's playing outside. Yeah, it's more valuable than Reed, but that's because of the position as well. I mean, the interior defenders get paid more generally. But yeah, to justify big money, you got to play more snaps. And it's funny because, if he plays more snaps, the defense is probably worse. And then you'll probably blame him for the defense being worse. I've been talking about it from day one. This is a guy you need for when you can't do something. And when you can't do something, it's so abundantly obvious, like 2021, you're like, I got to get this player. And then when you get this player and you actually do it and you put people on 2nd and 3rd and long, it's like, why do I need this player?
Well, I don't know if it's why do you need the player. It's more how the hell am I going to play this guy? Pay him $18 million when I got a cap crunch. I got everybody to pay right now, and he plays 20%, 20 snaps, 20% of the snaps a game.
Well, yeah, and the problem usually you're not as good as you are as the Eagles were, and it takes care of itself. Like Vita Bea, it takes care of itself because he plays more because you don't have as many good players. You need him out there. He's better than what you have, so he plays a little bit more, and then it takes care of itself. It's a weird discussion. It is a weird discussion because they almost have to play worse on defense for him to validate himself to people.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. We'll see what they end up doing. I have a feeling they're going to bring him back. I just don't know what the number is going to be. I have a hard time believing they're going to pay him more than Vita Vea. I really do. But I'm not saying you're wrong. You're right. That's how contracts work.
Well, remember when Vita signed his contract, what the cap was, as opposed to when Jordan will projecting to be signed, what the cap is.
But is Jordan Davis Jordan Davis is not in Vita Vea's league?
Vita Vea.
Not yet, but maybe he could get there.
No, well, he doesn't play as much. So, and Vita's proven. Vita's 30. He's been doing it for a long time. Yeah. But I will say, so of the interior defenders, Vita was 17th. Jordan was 20th. Pretty freaking close.
He played 67% of the snaps, though, last year.
Oh, yeah. Vita plays more.
Yeah.
But again, why does he play more? Yeah, it's like a circular loop. I can't even get it to... He plays more because they're not as good.
Yeah.
They don't have the same depth. That's why he plays more. Now, you might say he's never played at that level, and Vita's much more proven. I'm not arguing that. He's been doing it for a long time. He's a great player. But he's also over 30, now, I believe. But he's sort of the template of what you're looking for. And, if he had to play more, can't prove it. You can't prove something that doesn't exist. If he had to play more, you would probably think more highly of Jordan Davis, but he doesn't have to play more.
Right.
But that's not going to always be that way. If you're being honest with yourself. So it's very difficult. And I knew it was going to be difficult. I know.
Very consistent from the jump, Johnny Mac. We'll see what they end up doing here. Let's get
because I guarantee people in Tampa, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
And I used to cover the team, but I don't cover the team. But I guarantee there's people in Tampa. And I'll ask Rob Motti. We got to get Rob on the show.
Yeah, we should.
He lives in Tampa. I guarantee there's people in Tampa that say, we got to get, and Vita's a very good interior pass rusher as a nose tackle. But I guarantee people say, well, they got to get better interior pass rush. Because as good as one of the best interior pass rushers are, they're not going to be a nose tackle. I shouldn't say interior.
They don't rush the passer. That's not what nose tackles do.
They're not Jalen Carter. They're not even Milton Williams. They're not that type of three technique player. But he's out there because he's better than what they have. Now, would it be nice if I would assume because he was a 7th round pick and people assume that Jordan Davis, because he was the 13th pick, getting back to pedigree, which I forget the commenter said doesn't matter until it matters. People will say, well, he's got to be better than Moro Ejoma as a pass rusher. I mean, isn't that the thought? Even though they play different positions, and one guy's 285 pounds and extraordinarily quick and is a traditional 3 technique. Like, nobody's asking Moro Ejoma to play nose tackle. So why are you asking Jordan Davis to play 3 technique better than Moro Joma? Maybe he can lose 65 pounds between plays from second and third down.
Well, because hey, look, you know what it comes down to. It comes down to money. That's why. That's why they do that. Why do you ask him to play the 3 technique? Because he's making 18 million. Moro Jomo is making 800 grand or whatever it is.
Well, it's not your money.
It's not my money. I don't care. I'm just saying.
Well, I'm saying in fans in general. I mean, it's about getting the player to do what you want to be able to do on defense.
Yeah, but I know
you need both. You need
every
both.
action has a reaction. So I mean, if you pay Jordan 18, who do you got to move on from? You know, I think.
Well, and that's the most difficult part,
Yeah.
because that's what they're going to be going through on offense, and you've already seen it now with Mekhi Becton. Can't afford to pay him, even at a much, $10 million. You can't pay 5 guys $10 million. Dallas Goedert, if they move on, they know what's coming down the pipe. They don't pay anybody on defense. Now they already got to pay Zach Bond. They know what's coming next year with Jalen Carter. They got to pay Quinyon in 2 years. You see what the cornerback market is. You got to pay Cooper. You got to pay Reed in between. They're going to have to start playing defensive players, and that's going to make difficult. And I would say on that list of players, so Zach Bond, Jalen Carter, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and even Reed Blankenship, Jordan's last. So maybe they can't pay him.
Yeah. Mike Kravik says, how much for Blankenship extension?
Well, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Again, pedigree comes into it. And it, unfortunately for Reed, because he's not going to get as much as he should. But he's going to get a lot. But I'd have to look at the safety market. And I'll pull that up when we take a break. But I would think the Eagles would be able to get him at under 10 million. I would think, but that's just because I think he deserves more than 10 million. But pedigree comes into it. Sorry.
It does. 10 mil for Reed. We'll see. Brian Pumper says, I conclude that Jordan Davis is in fact mid. Johnny looks A-Rod eyeing your Vikings legacy move.
I don't know about the A-Rod. What are you bringing up A-Rod is
I don't know.
In a mid conversation?
I don't know what he's going for.
I did look up A-Rod. I did buy data on A-Rod Pumper. 696 home runs. I don't think that's mid.
No, that's not mid at all. Brian, did he call A-Rod mid yesterday?
No, well, he said, yeah.
Today.
I don't know.
Yeah. Forget what he called him yesterday, A-Rod. Baldy.
I thought he talked there. Oh. Wait, and hey, my love of the Chicago Bears. I don't know if you know, Pumper. I've also been accused of loving the Packers. I'm a big A-Rod guy. How does that work? I love every team. I love the Lions. Eagles fans were incensed at me.
You don't even have to go to other teams, John. My favorite is one day we'll get comments that Johnny Mac's carrying water for the Eagles organization, and then the next day we'll get comments Johnny Mac is a hater, or Johnny Mac is perpetually negative, and I'm like, make up your fucking mind. Good night. Bald Eagle checks in. How do people expect Davis to develop into a pass rusher? The dude is doubled and is too big to split any two linemen. Stats will go up with a good defensive end.
Well, they've had good defensive ends, but I digress. He's a nose tackle. I don't know what else to say. It is a nose tackle's job to take up 2 blocks.
Right.
It is a nose tackle's job to take up blockers to make things easier for others. That is their job. Now, would you like a better interior push on the pass rush and to push guys back into quarterback's lap? Yes. And he's gotten progressively better at that. And he was good at it in the playoffs a few times. But that's what Vita does well. He just bulls people back. That's what Haloti Ngata did well in his prime in Baltimore. But, yeah, he's not – nobody wants to turn at the NovaCare complex. Nobody wants to turn Jordan Davis into a 3 technique or even a 4-eye.
Yeah, I don't want to turn him into it. I was just wondering if he could do it maybe a little more if they need him to.
Well, he's already done it. Anybody can line up anywhere. As I
Yeah.
said, anybody could line up at nose tackle.
I mean, line up and not be a liability.
Yeah, exactly. That's the trick. The point is they have better options to play 3 technique and 4-eye. Occasionally he'll line up there because you want to, it's a rotational position. You might want to give somebody a blow, yada, yada, yada. But, they don't have, and they've been looking for a backup nose tackle. Noah Ellis, Christian's brother, big 300-foot. They constantly bring in these big body guys, and they can't play. To find a guy who can play and move like Jordan Davis or Vita Bea is rare. And that's why so many people have difficulty finding them.
Yeah, no doubt. Brian Pumper again checks in. Bust Davis is Andre Drummond. Does one specific thing good, but when he gets too much playing time, it's catastrophic for the team.
Well, I mean, yeah, he does one thing well. That's fair. How much is that worth? He's a 2-down player. I started the conversation with that. People don't listen.
Fair. Yeah. Brian Pumper again, Wolfgang Pumper, cooking these dudes in the chat. Pump, keep cooking them, brother. Do whatever floats your boat. All right. I appreciate all you guys. Good conversation there. And Jordan Davis went a little longer than I wanted, but it's good because this is one I do think it's one of the interesting developments of the offseason to see what the Eagles end up doing and how they draft, obviously, and all those things. So talked about BG, talked about Jordan Davis, talked about the youth on that defensive line. Unbelievable youth, but appreciate all you guys being here. We'll get to our first commercial break, and then we're going to talk to BLJ coming up in a little bit here on Birds 365. So thank you all for listening. Hit that like button. We'll be right back in 3 minutes on Birds 365.